Okay, so you got this so-called Torah movement that thinks the Sabbath is evening to evening. But time and time throughout, even the scriptures that they use, it tells you that a day begins at dawn, not at evening, right? You got to keep your Sabbath properly, beginning at dawn and ending at dawn. It begins Saturday dawn and ends Sunday dawn, the seventh day of the week, Saturday. Okay, the first place that they love to go to, Genesis 1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Right, so they try to go use verse 2 to say, oh, there's darkness before the light. But let's check out Jeremiah 4, what talks about the day of the Lord right before the millennium reign. This is Jeremiah 4, verse 23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. Right, skip down a few verses. Verse 27. For thus saith Jehovah, said, the whole land shall be desolate, yet will I not make a full end. Right, this is talking about the day of the Lord, right, the sixth seal, when Great Tribulation begins. Right, and this happens right before the millennium reign. The millennium reign is the prophetic Sabbath. Right, and so there's no darkness in the Sabbath. The Sabbath begins like with the day, right? You can even get how that they're not going to need the sun or the moon because it's going to be light in the new kingdom. But so let's hop back over to Genesis 1, verse 3. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay, and you got how Yeshua, where he is the light of the world, he was brought forth right at this time. Right, and even in John 9, where he tells you that he is the light of the world, he tells you that they're working, right, in the day. God works 6 days, right, and then on the seventh day he rested, right? God works, and then it's evening, and then day dawns, and I'm going to get into that in a second. I must work the works of him that sent me, while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am the world, I am the light of the world, because he was brought forth on the first day. Okay, the last thing to bring to light here in Genesis 1, verse 4, and God saw the light, and it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Right, so you're going to have them say that this word evening and morning, right, is the completion of, like, the whole day, right? But if you check the words in the Strongs, you're going to see that it's telling you something completely different. This is the word for evening. It's Arab, right? It means dusk, right? Dusk is sunset. Now let's check for... This is the word for morning. It's boker, and it means dawn, right? Break of day, right? So you got the sun sets, and then the day dawn towards the next day of the week, right? And you got this repeated 6 times, and at the very end, right, of Genesis 1, you got just dawn, right? And then Genesis 2 talks about the Sabbath, because the Sabbath began at dawn. Alright, now let's get into one of the next crucial things, right, that they get wrong, is the Day of Atonement, thinking that this is how, like, a Sabbath works. Right, so there's 2 key verses, right, verse 27 of Leviticus 23. Also on the 10th day, right, remember that, the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a Day of Atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you. And you shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto Jehovah. Okay. Now you got verse 32. It shall be unto you a Sabbath, right? And it's really like a high Sabbath, right? It's a special Sabbath, right? One of the feast days of rest. And you shall afflict your souls. And the 9th day, right? So you got 2 different days. They got the 10th day and the 9th day of the month at even. From even until even shall you celebrate your Sabbath. Okay. Now you got to reason this. If each day begins at evening, then how do you spend across 2 days by evening? Right? Because if you have evening to evening, then that's just 1 day. Like, that's just like if say today, right, we do the Day of Atonement, and assuming that days begin at evening, right, and then the next day begins at evening, then you'd only be having your Day of Atonement for just today, because it's just going to be the 24 hours from, like, I guess, sunset to to the next sunset, but it's not going to span across 2 days, right? The Day of Atonement, it has to span across 2 days. So how is that possible? Well, you have to have a day dawning, right? If the day begins at dawn, then on the ninth day, where you're going to begin at the middle of the day, right? Because you have it, the day dawns, then you wait 12 hours, then the sun sets, and now you begin the Day of Atonement. The atonement continues for the rest of the day, the 12 hours, and then you got the next day, right? The day dawns the next day, and you got 12 hours, and then sunset, right? It spans across 2 days, the ninth day and the 10th day. You can't do that if you have days begin at evening, right? Say you're on the ninth day, right? Beginning of the day, evening, right? You go 12 hours, day dawns, then 12 hours again, and then it's the evening. It's the end of the ninth day, but that's just 1 day. Like, all God would have to say is just, hey, keep the Day of Atonement on the ninth day, the whole ninth day. Right? He wouldn't have to say evening to evening, because they know that days begin at evening. Why would he have to specify if, and the entire Israel knew that days begin at evening? Why do you have to specify for this, right, that, from evening to evening you gotta keep it? Why would he say that for everything else? Or maybe it's special. Okay, one of the next things that they love to bring up is Nehemiah. So this is the verse, right? But then we're going to go back. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. And initially, you'll think, they closed the gates at evening, right at sunset, when it began to be dark, so that nobody would come in on the Sabbath day. But you got to think again, right? Let's go back. Okay, verse 15. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves and ladding asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And it testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. So you got to think, if they closed the gates right at the beginning of the Sabbath, then people would just be able to come in during the day, right, of like the during the day, and then they'd be able to sell on the Sabbath. But instead, what they would have, like what any reasonable person would do, is you'd close the gates before, so nobody's sneaking in at nighttime, right, to come in and then buy and sell on the next day, because they would have to stay there the whole night and want to be there the whole time. Right, so they had to close the gates prior, right, the night before the Sabbath. What some people might also want to try to point out is how they're trying to take down Yeshua really fast, right? Like when it was growing dark or whatever, right? And then they'll point out Luke 23 verse 54 to say, and then there was the Sabbath day. But you got to really check even the Strong's words for this. Okay, this is Luke 23 verse 54. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. Okay, but now let's check the Strong's word for that word drew on. Okay, and here, right, it's G2020, right, to begin to grow light, begin to dawn, right, that word, it means to begin to dawn, right, so it was preparation day, right, so it would have been Friday, and then the Sabbath began to dawn. Pretty clear there. Okay, some other places that you could go to is 1 Thessalonians 5, which tells you that you're going to be children of the light. You can't be children of the darkness, right? So if you're going to be keeping this evening to evening Sabbath, right, you're going to be children of the darkness. But God tells you to be children of the light. How can you be children of the light if you're keeping this darkness to darkness Sabbath? Okay, the next thing I want to point out is 2 Peter 1, verse 19. We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. Right, so the day dawning is even a more sure word of prophecy, which these people don't have if they're keeping this evening to evening Sabbath. So keep the Sabbath properly.